Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is the PDPreps Podcast. We are recording, it is about noon, September 12th. And you know the drill if you're here. Recapping a great week three. Interesting week three. I think we always use that adjective, but it's always true, I think. And then taking a look at, excuse me, taking a look ahead. Some week four games. Quite a few teams are on bye this week, actually, and I think we're really kind of in now the meat of the non-league season. So not as many kind of marquee games, I'd say, this week, but still some interesting matchups we'll touch on, and also a little tease, but a big change in our rankings this week up at the top. So stay tuned for that, but. Kienan, I believe we'll start with you. You were up in Mendocino, catching our game of the week. Another defensive clinic. Casa Grande gets a big win over Ukiah. Ukiah spent some time at number 5 in our rankings, at least I guess a week, and Casa has been there for the last couple of weeks. But another really impressive win for Casa. But tell us about the game. What'd you see up there in Mendo?
It was all Casa all night long, pretty much after the first drive stalled for Casa. They just kind of took over. Another big standout performance from their defense, another 5 interception game. It's the second week in a row now where they've had 5 interceptions as a team. 5 different players each had an interception. Cody Cornelius had 2 sacks. Marco Sierra added a sack as well. A bunch of players had tackles for loss as well. So it was another defensive clinic for the Gauchos, and we were wondering how this Casa team was gonna turn out at the beginning of the season, obviously, because they didn't have that offensive firepower or anything like that. But we knew they had some playmakers on defense, that's for sure, and they've been playing lights out the past couple weeks. I will say this on the offensive side of the ball. John Antonio said that they think the offense has been clicking the past couple weeks, but they just haven't been able to finish or execute. And Danny Mercado, no doubt, had his most efficient game. I would say his best game so far at the quarterback position, rushing in for a touchdown, passing for 2 TDs. He probably should have had more, if not for some costly penalties, which I'll go into in a second here. But final stat line, 14 of 25, 171 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, both to Clint Ray, actually, who had a great game, 6 catches, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Mercado, on a bum ankle that he suffered injury on in the third quarter, had a rushing touchdown as well, had 3 rushes for 32 yards. I will say, though, Gus, as well, that the kind of focus of Casa's offense has always been that kind of air raid passing attack. But Zach Herrera at the running back position has been playing insanely well. Yeah. He added 2 more touchdowns to his season total. I believe that's 4 or 5 touchdowns on the season so far for Herrera rushing. 15 carries, 164 yards. Both of his 2 rushing touchdowns came more than 30 yards. One was 35 and the other was like 37. And it was clear that they wanted to go to him early and often to kind of open those gaps of that Ukiah line in the first half, at least. And lo and behold, it worked. Third quarter was interesting, full of penalties. Ukiah had already had a bunch of penalties hurt him beforehand, but it was just ugly, penalty infested third quarter. Gus, you've seen these kind of games before, but it hurt Ukiah more often than it hurt Casa. Casa did have a 53-yard touchdown pass called back by holding, and then another big gain called back by holding. But Ukiah had a personal foul called that took away a stellar drive for the Wildcats. And then they had an unsportsmanlike penalty called that aided in Casa getting more points. It wasn't. I hate to say it, Gus, but like based on the first game, that's kind of been an early season theme for the Wildcats, to say the least. But that was the one thing Paul Cronin focused on after the game was, how do we stay disciplined and how do we get those penalties, like how do we stay grounded and avoid those penalties. But like I said in the beginning, all Casa all night long. If Casa can be this efficient on both sides of the ball every game, watch out. It's going to be they're going to be a scary team to play, and I think their one hiccup was against Newman in the season opener, where they couldn't really get anything going until late. But since then, they've since then they've been playing some scary football. So they do have some favorable matchups on the schedule coming up. We'll get to that later, but yeah, watch out for Casa, man. They're playing some great football.
Yeah, what was I guess kind of with the 5 interceptions. I mean, how much of that was Costa's defense just being really good, and how much of that maybe was some offensive inefficiencies for Ukiah? Like, was it more an impressive showing from Costa's defense, or more of a, I don't know, disappointing showing from Ukiah's offense?
No, I would just say that Costa defensive line is just in your face, smash
Yeah.
mouth all night long. Especially with Cody Cornelius, who we're going to talk about a lot this season up front. But they make you make so many mistakes, and it's kind of there for the taking. Honestly, they should have had 6 interceptions, but Matt Riley just fumbled a easy interception late in the first half. But yeah, I mean and Antonio said this right away. He was like, yeah, the line is what gets you those interceptions. Their pressure has been relentless, and I would say it was for sure Costa's defensive line that put that pressure on that really did the damage.
Yeah, I know that I was really impressed with Ukiah after week 1 and that Montgomery win. But yeah, it still seems like, and again, I think Paul had kind of said this a bit where he's like, it'll, there will be some good, but a lot of guys are kind of learning the new system and some, just new coach, new system. Kids are still trying to get accustomed to everything too. So there will be some growing pains this year for Ukiah, and we're seeing that, I think, right now, especially after the Dublin game last week too. So yeah, I think yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one more thing. I mean, now that we've both watched Ukiah in person, Omari Phillips Porter is fun to watch. He is a fun player to watch. He's almost like that Deebo Samuel type role for Ukiah. He's an athlete. He's fun to watch. But he had one of those unsportsmanlike or personal foul penalties that kind of hurt him. But yeah, he's fun to watch. I call him OPP. Fun player to watch for sure, guys.
I've heard he's also a pretty good basketball player too, so see you catch him on the hard court this season as well. But yeah, good win for Casa. I guess we'll give this away again, but they're staying in our top 5 spot this week in our rankings, so well deserved result for them. Yeah, I guess we'll flip it over to the game that I was at. Not something I've experienced before, but we had a tie in high school football. Out in Moraga, Windsor Campolindo played to a 14-14 draw. Again, not an ending I've ever seen before, not an ending I even knew was a possibility, actually, until last Friday. But yeah, essentially what it came down to was the score was tied 14-14 at the end. Obviously, Windsor actually missed a 33-yard field goal to, essentially win the game with like 10 seconds left. They miss it. Both teams kind of go back to their sidelines. The refs, talk to both teams or whatever. And then everyone's kind of getting ready to, to start OT. And then the refs come over, and then the refs actually signal the game is over. And so what I learned, me and a reporter from West Coast Preps both ran over to the officials being like, what the hell just happened? And the officials told us that in a non-league game, both teams have to agree to go into overtime or to continue to play on. And Campolindo opted not to. They essentially declined to continue playing, meaning the game ended in a tie. Windsor wanted to keep playing. I will say they had a lot of momentum in the second half. They played really, again, kind of cliche, but tale of two halves, really poorly in the first half and much better in the second half. They had a lot of momentum. Campo kind of got a late kind of miracle score, in like the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game, to tie it. Windsor came back down, had a chance to, we're deep in Campo territory, had a 3rd and inches at Campo's 11 with 20 seconds left. But then they commit a false start, backs them up, back to the 16, 3rd and 6. They can't convert on that, and then they have to settle for a field goal. And in high school, those 5 yards can be a big difference in for kickers and stuff. So definitely, I think that penalty definitely cost them the win, I'd say. But then again, they had plenty of other chances to win this game as well. They right before Campo scored, I said it was a bit of a miracle play, but Campo was 4th and 12 at Windsor's 40 with 5 minutes left, and I mean, with the way Campo's defense was or offense was playing, and Windsor's defense was really locked in the second half. With the way that was going, essentially it was like, all right, if Windsor can get the stop here, they can probably run the clock out and win this game. And then, like kind of happened a lot in the first half, Windsor gives up a deep play to like a 40 or 30 something yard pass that gets Campo inside Windsor's 10. And again, this is 4th and 12 essentially with the game on the line. They surrender that. Campo goes on to score, and then this is where we end up. But yeah, that was the story of the first half. Campo was something. I think I had 6 of 8 or 6 of 9 on 3rd down conversions. They had I think 1 or 2 4th down conversions. Like they were just like Windsor's defense just could not get off the field. And it wasn't really anything like crazy Campo was doing. It was just kind of, it'd be like 3rd and 6 and they'd get like a 9-yard run, or it'd be like 4th and 3 and they'd get like a 7-yard run. So it was just like timely offense, I guess, from Campo, and untimely defense, I guess, from Windsor. So again, they cleaned it up in the second half. Again, Windsor played a lot better in the second half. Most of their offense came in the second half. They held Campo to like 80 yards of offense in the second half. So they did play well, much better, obviously, the last 2 quarters. But, again, this was a very winnable game for Windsor, I thought. Again, that the field goal at the end, I don't want to put it all on that, but, you make that, or, the penalty doesn't happen, and, it's an easier shot. So, again, game was well in reach for Windsor, but I know that they were really disappointed by the result, by the tie. DJ Sexton, their head coach, he's like, yeah, it's just weird and bizarre and disappointing. Like he really felt that, Windsor, the game should have kept going. And also actually, so the West Coast Preps reporter and I talked to Campolindo head coach Kevin Macy as well, just to kind of figure out why he made this decision. But he just said, he's like, our team is beat up. Like we're, like running on fumes. They had played a double overtime game up at Vanden and Fairfield in week 1, and then total rock fight 6-0 loss to Amador Valley. The week prior. Amador Valley is a big, strong physical team, really good defense. So it sounded like they got beat up, but I don't know. It was just an odd result, and I'm curious kind of how the Campo community has reacted to that, just because I'm sure the kids wanted to keep playing, and I'm sure I'm sure their parents weren't too happy about it. I'm sure, it didn't even seem like the other coaches were too thrilled about the decision. But again, I think it does come down to, Campo's coach wants to try to keep his players healthy. It's a long season. They're in a very tough league. They're up in Division I this year. Not a game, he probably feels that they need to kill themselves for, just going forward. But it's going to be interesting to see how this game kind of, affects both teams come playoff seedings. Campo's Division I, Windsor's Division II. Windsor's probably one of the better Division II teams, or we'll see. I mean, again, they're winless, here going into week 4. Campo should be. I mean, very strange. Yeah, Campo but Campo was also picked to win that. The Diablo Foothill League, which is one of the best leagues in this area. By the Mercury News, so they should be good as well. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see how the seasons play out for both these teams, and how this result could affect either one, because I have no idea how a tie, like I haven't seen a tie.
I don't think it helps anybody.
I don't know. I mean, I've been covering high school sports, up here for 5 years, and I've been following it for longer, but like I can't remember the last time I saw a tie. So just weird game, strange result, but I mean, Windsor, like you said, weird to say that, we're entering week 4 here and Windsor's still looking for its first win, but that's what it is.
It was crazy. We were following it after, and I was talking with Paul Cronin afterwards, because he immediately asked what happened with Windsor Campo, and he's like, "Yep, that's happened twice in my career. One of them I didn't want to play, and the other time they didn't want to play. So It is what it is." And I was like, interesting. But I mean, because it didn't seem like Campo. I mean, obviously they're playing some solid games, but they don't seem like they're as good as they were last year, at least against Rancho or any of these other teams. So, very very interesting.
Not as much star power. I mean, they had I believe it was Dashel, their quarterback last year. Dashel, I think it was Dashel Weaver, something like that. He was. Yeah, he was incredible last year. He graduated, and then they also had Robbie, I believe it's Mascaroni, who's playing as one of the best wide receivers in the area last year, and he's playing at UC Davis this year. So those two guys were gone, and yeah, I mean, it was really their quarterback was, again, outside of a couple of Hail Marys, it was all kind of little, little outs to the flat, hitting I mean, nothing like no real crazy explosive plays, except for, again, a couple of just Hail Marys that they just, it was desperation plays, but pretty strong run game from Campo. Again, I think Windsor's defense has been tested by two pretty good run teams, through the first couple of weeks. So I think that'll do them well going forward. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of again, like we said, well, one of the bigger question marks was, how, what was Windsor's line going to be on both sides of the ball? And they've gotten some good tests so far, so hopefully, so I think that'll benefit them going forward. But I know again that they're disappointed that they couldn't keep playing, but yeah, just a weird result. But yeah, I guess just kind of moving on. Too much time on the first two games here. We have quite a few others to cover, but man, all right. So let's jump into the Newman vintage game.
Shall we?
Really kind of crazy. I mean, again, Newman has been pulling these wins out and has been, looking pretty good doing it. This one, though, I had heard was not as kind of pretty in the first half. I heard Newman had 2 turnovers. They trailed vintage 20-13. It was, kind of a far cry from the week prior where they really just took it to Vacaville from the beginning and controlled that game from start to finish. This one, they kind of had to rally a bit. Second half, they kind of turned it on, took the lead. Vintage came back. They scored to tie it, I think, with a few minutes left. And then, Newman got, I think it was Dominic Torres, got his second interception of the game, I believe deep in Vintage territory, which Patrick Gardner then converted into a game-winning field goal, I believe, with just seconds left. So, dramatic finish to that one, but yeah, Newman pulls it out, man. And yeah, Zach Holman continues to just be an absolute force. He had 212 yards of Newman's 302 on the day. 206 of that came on the ground, 34 carries, 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, the guy just put the team on his back. I don't have his season stats in front of me right now, but I think he's gone well over 100 yards in each of his 3 games, and I believe he's the rushing leader right now for this area, by hands down by a lot. So, I think that was, again, our question, after they lost Santino Acevedo and Kaiser Steverson last year, we're like, oh man, what's Newman's offense going to look like? And it's like, well, it's Zach Holman and he's really good. So, yeah, Newman 3-0, Vintage is a good Division I team. Newman won last year as well. The Vacaville win still looks really good. And then again, that Casa win has picked up some strength, I guess, kind of, with the results that Casa's had the last couple weeks too. So yeah, Newman is off to a 3-0 start, and an impressive 3-0 start at that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was I mean, I'll be honest, I was pretty surprised at that halftime score when I saw it. I was pretty, my mouth kind of dropped a little bit. But yeah, I think Patrick Gardner, he's known for those big game field goals. I'm pretty sure he had that game winner against Acalanes last year in the playoffs. But yeah, no, like you said, you kind of hit the nail on the head here. Newman keeps winning, 3-0. So they definitely are proving some people wrong. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty adversarial win there. Definitely face some adversity, which could be good for them down the road, especially later on in the season. But yeah, let's move on. Rancho Cotati game bounce back winners over in Sacramento, 48-34. Jacob Pruitt, I mean, are we even surprised at this point, Gus? I mean, this kid is just absolutely insane. 10 of 18 passing, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then 19 carries, 181 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns as well, 6 total touchdowns. But the Geos had a big game. Gio Martinez had 2 TDs. Giovanni Ortiz had a TD as well. Rancho trailed 6-0 early, kind of faced some adversity there, but then rattled off 28 straight points, led 28-12 at half. Sacramento kind of kept it close with some late TDs. And Gus, we were kind of talking to, I think we both talked to Garrick Hodling about this, about how young Rancho is this season with the kind of young defense. needing to kind of shore it up a little bit. But yeah, Pruitt just keeps doing what he's doing. And yeah, Rancho Cotati bounces back with a 48-34 win over Sacramento. Pretty big bounce back win, I would say.
Yeah, like you said, kind of early on, it looked a little dicey. I was kind of following updates and getting some text and stuff, and so it was, it was kind of an ugly start. And Rancho's offense really kind of didn't get going until again they fell in a hole. But yeah, then Pruitt just kind of erupted. So. Like we kind of said about Newman's offense, though, I mean, again, it seems like it's kind of this, the Zach Homan show right now. And right now, Rancho, kind of the same thing can be said about, this is the Jacob Pruitt show. And Potu Hale, I think, had like 90 rushing yards too, and he's really good. And again, he had 3 touchdowns in the first game, that you had covered. So they have some weapons out there for sure. But I mean, I think Rancho is going to go as far, I think, as Jacob Pruitt takes them. I think this is, he is the engine, he is the motor, he is everything for that, for that offense. So. And again, they have some other, good players, like I said, but I think, obviously everything runs through Jacob. And again, I think same thing with Homan over for Newman as well. So, I mean, again, Rancho was favored in this game. They probably should have won by a few more. Rancho, I mean, again, I think they killed Sacramento last year, but I will say Sacramento last year was not, I believe was missing they have a 4-star running back named Lamar Radcliffe, who's committed to Utah. He missed all of last year with an ankle injury or a leg injury, and he played again. He was back for this game, and he had a big game. I know he had a couple super long runs, a very long touchdown run, I believe, late. But yeah, outside of that, I think it was a pretty good effort from Rancho's defense. So,
49-6 last year.
Yeah. But like I said too, I mean, like you mentioned earlier too, it's like, Rancho was, had the game won handily a couple times late. I mean, again, they were up, I think 20, in the fourth quarter. And then again, just some kind of maybe mental mistakes or, young defense, like we said, and, probably a bit closer than I think Garrick wanted it to be, but again, win's a win, good bounce back win, like we said too. And they'll have a good, I mean, I know Freedom from Oakley is coming to town this week and they're 0-3, but still, I believe they're a Division I program. And, again, this is, you want to play these big schools and kind of get battle tested, at this point of the year. So, we'll see if Rancho can move to 3-0 or 3-1, but good bounce back win for them. And then, I guess moving on real quickly to a couple other games, and then we'll do some quick hitters, and then move right on into some other stuff. But St. Vincent 30, Balboa 7. Balboa, I believe, won the state championship 2 years ago in like Division 7A or something. So one of these smaller school, good smaller school programs, but St. Vincent, really kind of put the hammer on them again. I mean, this is again 3 games now in a row where St. Vincent has just looked really, really good against some good opponents. So, similar to the Rancho game, though, Balboa scored in their first offensive, possession. Trent Herzog was like, they ran an offense that we did not expect, and then they made some adjustments, and that was the end of that. So. St. Vincent came back, scored on their next three drives, 20, led 20-0 after the first quarter. Nothing really happened in the second and the third. And then by the fourth, they scored an early touchdown. I think they got some of their reserves in. And, that was the Oakland Tech game. Sorry. I'm thinking back, but, anyway, it's too much football in the brain. So, again, just another good St. Vincent win. The only, I will say one of the, St. Vincent is on bye this week, and that's probably really good timing for them. So Malcolm Rooks missed the game with the hamstring injury. Brett Gisletta had a shoulder injury. Those guys, again, it didn't seem like those were too serious. But then, so they didn't play at all on Saturday. And then, St. Vincent even lost, 2 of their other better players, and Jack Oliphant, really good defensive lineman. And also Dylan Brown, who's a good running back, plays some, a few positions on defense too. But both those guys left the game with concussions, so they should be able to rest up this week, and I believe they should be able to return next week. But one of the other big ones is CJ Perez, another very, very talented lineman for them, suffered a shoulder injury, and that one could be a bit more serious. He could miss some time, and that would be a big loss for St. Vincent. So. I mean, again, 3-0, they're heading into the bye week undefeated, heading into the bye week, at a good time. They have to heal up. But again, a lot of it, they're looking really, really good this year. I think they have a plus 90 scoring differential through their first 3 games, which is crazy.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can ask for a better start, for them again outside of the injuries, but yeah, I mean, Gabe Casanovas, their sophomore quarterback, is continuing to play really well. Ty Nickens had a good game. I know. I think he had a touchdown catch. I think he actually had two touchdown catches, and then Jack Davis too had another great game for them. Kind of a utility running back, wide receiver guy, but he had a great game as well.
Swiss Army
So
knife.
pretty much. So again, the big names for St. Vincent played well. Their defense played well, and yeah, they're 3-0 heading into the bye week. But yeah, I mean, have you? So you haven't covered a St. Vincent game yet, have you?
No, not this year, but I was
Okay,
gonna say a big key to their success last year was their ability to stay healthy, not
that's true.
have that many guys, get injured or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys rest up and recover. Like you said, it's a great timing for them. They're on bye.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, couldn't have said any better. St. Vincent 3-0. Let's take you to the last game we're gonna check on here before Gus we get to some quick hitters. Petaluma 34, Annalee 14 down at Ellison Field. First time since 2010 the Petaluma has beat Annalee. I didn't know it was that long of a time, but Trojans beat Annalee for the first time since then. Kind of a pretty close one early on after the first, tied 7-7 before Petaluma went on a 14-0 run in the second. Kind of put this game to bed early. Chase Miller, I mean, we've talked about Homan, we've talked about Pruitt, and now we can talk about Chase Miller because he is having a stellar season as well. 16 carries, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ed Burnsich, his backfield fullback mate, 105 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. But I think one of the bigger stories here is Trojan defensive ends Burnsich and London Sindel, the returning VVL Defensive Player of the Year, just absolutely came to play. Combined for 17 tackles, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and Sindel had a fumble recovery touchdown as well. Couldn't ask for anything better from your defensive lineman there. But yeah, Petaluma's after that a season opening loss at Rancho, they've kind of put their put on the foot on the pedal. Excuse me. Jesus, I have the football brain, man. Foot on the pedal and have just been playing lights out as well. So big win for Petaluma. They have a pretty big matchup on deck, our game of the week this week, which we'll get to later on. But yeah, good win for the Trojans, Gus.
Yeah, I believe Rick Christ had said, in doing some, preseason interviews and stuff, and such. He said this is probably the best defensive, the best defensive ends he's ever had, in Burnsich and London Sindel, and so far that looks to be holding up. These guys are having monster starts to the season. So again, their big thing is depth as well. They have a pretty small roster this year, so hopefully everyone can stay healthy. But yeah, they're looking really strong. Yeah, and before we kind of get in it, into everything else, but it's looking like that Egg Bowl again too. I don't know the exact date of it this year, but Petaluma Casa should be another really good one this year. So yeah, I know obviously a long way until that one, but yeah, both teams have started out pretty well, and yeah, should be heading towards a good season. So all right, a couple other quick hitters here before we get into some week 4 stuff. But one of the bigger surprises of this week, and we both got this wrong in our predictions, but Napa upsetting Montgomery. Last second touchdown for Diego Montanez, and then Napa goes for 2 in the lead. They get it. Monty tries to come back and answer. They have one last try, but basically, go 3 and out, and that was it. So really surprising. Napa has been a program that's struggled for the last couple of seasons. They had that 1 year, I believe it was 2019 with Brock Bowers. I mean, I don't know if people aren't aware, the best tight end in college football is from Napa. It is from Napa, which is pretty crazy. Not something you'd expect, but yeah, I mean, this is but even back then, Napa didn't start 3-0. So this is the first time that Napa started 3-0 since 2015. Which I believe they won 11 games that year or something like that. But yeah, this is one of the better starts for Napa in recent memory. Monty had the game. They were trailing. Monty had to rally to take the lead late. I believe again before the score, they were up 27-20, but they had to score 13 straight points to take that lead. So credit to them for fighting back. But yeah, I mean, Bobby McGovern had 221 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, one of which went to Isaiah Wright. Great game for him, probably his best game of the season. 3-star, 6'4", 220-pound, just beast of a wide receiver. 5 catches, 124 yards, touchdown for him. Again, best game of the season. But yeah, it sounded like Montgomery kind of switched up their offensive approach in the second half and went more to the ground. Quentin Perez, was the big kind of beneficiary there. He had a great game, 2 rushing touchdowns and like 116 yards for him. So yeah, I mean, Montgomery kind of was like, all right, passes not really working. Let's go to the ground, and that worked out pretty well. So they obviously, again, we've said, they might struggle a bit this year, but they have some talent and they could, show some flashes. And I think, again, despite the loss, they obviously had a huge game last week against Bethel, and a lot of those guys like Aiden Presler and Isaiah had some big games, and Quentin too now is starting to get his feet underneath him, and Isaiah had a good game. So again, despite the loss, I think there is some good stuff there for Montgomery, but still a surprise though, I'd say for sure. Anything on that one before we keep going?
Well, yeah. Well, we did say that Napa was looking a little frisky this year. They were going to be a little,
Mhm.
So yeah.
Not going to
Credit
be
to
not going to
Napa.
be not going to be an easy win like they have been the last couple of years.
No. It's new head coach and everything like that. So, yep.
Mhm.
Good win for Napa there. Definitely a surprise, but Napa 3-0. Like, couldn't have said it any better.
Yep. All right. Another quick one too was another one that we got wrong on the predictions, but Santa Rosa. Actually,
They let us know too.
I'm looking at all these actually. I think all these quick hitters we got wrong in our predictions. But yeah, Santa Rosa winners over Archie Williams 19-8. Damian, I hope I pronounced this name right. Guyona. I hope again. Sorry about that, Damian. Guyona. I don't know. Something like that, but. He had a great game, 2 field goals. I think head coach Roy Keegan even called him the player of the game. He had 2 field goals. He even like pinned a punt inside the 10, and then had 2 he was 1 of 2 on PATs. He had 1 blocked actually, which Roy was funny. He's like, yeah, it scared the bleep out of me, sending him out for a game winning or a go ahead field goal there with 5 minutes left. But yeah, it was a good win for Santa Rosa. They led 13-0 at the half. Talon Patrick had a touchdown run. Cooper Lee caught a touchdown pass from Nolan Bankton. And then Guyona hit his first field goal, I believe, late in the third to go up 16-0. Archie comes back and scores in the fourth, and then with 5 minutes left again, they get deep into the Panthers get deep in Archie Williams territory. I think they get it down to inside the 10, but then stall, and then Guyona hits like a 25-yarder, which is the same length as his first one. So, and that was to make it a 2-score game with 5 minutes left, and then Daniel Mills, sophomore, and we know he's a very good pitcher in baseball too, but he had the essentially game stealing interception, on the heels of that second field goal. So. Good win for Santa Rosa. They're into the win column. I think we did say that, again, we both picked Archie Williams, but I think, like we said too, this was a very winnable game for Santa Rosa. So we'll see if they can stack it. They have a couple other games here coming up that could be winnable. That could be winnable. They're playing at Ukiah this week, and then they have bye, and then they play at Piner, which Piner is still without their starting quarterback, Matty Erickson. I was texting with his dad last week. They were waiting on an MRI, for his knee. I think they were afraid it might be an ACL or something, which would be terrible. He was lined up for a big, senior year for football and for basketball. So I haven't heard anything since then, but again, hoping for the best for him. Yeah, I believe it was Sukana Prack filled in again this week against Center Foul, and kind of like Napa, Center Foul is a program that's struggled in the past, but they've really kind of built a good little they've been a good program the last couple of years, and I think they're 3-0 now. So again, Santa Fe beats Piner 7-0. Kind of a shutout, or it was a shutout, but yeah, it was. I don't quite know what we expected from this game, but Santa Fe, is for sure a program on the rise. Piner was obviously dealing with some health issues with Maddie. They had looked good, with Prack in their first 2 wins. So. Yeah, a bit of a come down, but Santa Fe is a good program. So I don't think there's any, I'm sure it was a frustrating night. Getting shut out is never fun, but Santa Fe is a good program, and Piner is dealing with their own adversity. So maybe one of these losses that'll kind of get everyone kind of fired up again for the rest of the way. But yeah, not too many details from this one, but outside the final score and and a couple of stats, but we'll see if Piner can bounce back. Actually, I believe Piner's off this week.
They are, yeah.
Checking the schedule. Yeah, so they're off this week. So so yeah, we'll see how they look coming out of the bye in a couple weeks. But yeah, not a great way to go into it. But again, I think they're gonna have to figure out some things too with if Maddie's gonna be sidelined for a while.
Yeah, no doubt. Piner was 1 of 8 in third down conversions. Not as efficient as they wanted to be. 2 costly interceptions hurt them as well. But their defense certainly did their part. Only allowing 7 points, even though their offense didn't do too much. Their defense definitely showed up there. But I did want to say, Gus, you mentioned that all these quick hitters are pretty much ones we got wrong in the rankings. So we just want to let all of you know that we wear it on the chin, okay? And we will talk about them.
It's fun to be wrong, honestly.
I know. I kind of like it. It's Santa Rosa. They let us know, man. They let us know that we got it wrong. But Gus, you want to take the last quick hitter here? Benicia Maria Carrillo.
Yeah. Final score: Benicia 22, Maria Carrillo 19. Carrillo, really interesting player from Jay Higgins, but I kind of like it. They 4th down, they were deep in Benicia territory late in the game. They opt to go for a game-winning touchdown instead of settling for a field goal, and they don't convert. So Benicia holds on for the win. But I'm actually, I'm about to be heading out to Carrillo, for some game of the week preview stuff here this evening. So I'll be curious to kind of see how the kids, thought about that, but I'm sure they all wanted to go for the win. That's a pretty exciting spot to be in. So I'll give some, obviously, it didn't work out, hindsight being 2020, but kudos to Jay Higgins for having the stones to do that. I kind of like that. So, but yeah, tough loss for Carrillo. They're now 1-1, and I know they fell a bit in the CalPreps rankings and such. So not a great loss for them. But yeah, there's still, a long way to go for Carrillo, and it'll, like you said, our game of the week this week is Petaluma Carrillo, 2 very similar teams, both very run heavy teams, with pretty good defenses too. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that one plays out this week. But yeah, that's kind of all we got for that. Oh yeah, I guess just quick shout out to Dwight Olson, 114 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns for him to lead Carrillo's offense. So. Carrillo going into this week 1-1, Petaluma 2-1. Should be a fun game. Should be a fast game, I think, too, just because with all the running, running defense too. So, but yeah, we will see. All right, with that, that's the end of our week 3 recap. Couple of quick things, and then we'll send everyone on their way. But yeah, we'll start with our week 4 rankings. And Keenan, it took us 3 weeks, but we have our first big move.
Wait. The 5th spot is a huge move. What are you talking about?
There you go. 5th spot's huge. I know there was a bit of maybe not consternation, but I know there's some back and forth about even having, Windsor ahead of Newman last week after Newman beat Vacaville, and then Windsor lost to Escalon. But I think after this week, it's pretty clear, at least to us, that those, that there should be a change there at the top. So our new number 1, Cardinal Newman, taking over 3-0, 3 good wins. Like we said, Vacaville, probably the best win any team's had around here so far. Good vintage win, Division I team. And then the Casa win too is looking better and better, since they've been, they killed Berkeley and then they, beat up on Ukiah. So I think that one's getting some little more oomph to it. And then also too, again, what hurts Windsor's case is Escalon lost to California of San Ramon last weekend. They lost by, not even did they lose it, they lost by 3 touchdowns. It was 42-21 was the final score. California is a Division I program. They play in one of the, I believe they play in that same league with like San Ramon Valley. And, so they are a very talented team, very talented program. But I believe it also does, that result for sure, it impacts Windsor a lot. I'd say just kind of take some luster out of Camp or out of Escalon a bit. And then, and again, Windsor lost to Escalon. So, do all the math there. But yeah, again, it's just weird. Windsor, for as hyped as I guess, we and everyone else kind of made them heading into week 4, 0-1-1. Not the start they were looking for. I think both games were very winnable. Escalon was in hand. Campo, was in hand. So yeah, a few bounces go differently, or go their way. And this is very different, but, all credit to Cardinal Newman, 3-0. They're kind of forcing our hand here. They've been, I think, the most impressive team early on. Obviously it hasn't all been good. Again, the kind of sloppy start against against Vintage, but they looked really strong against Casa, really strong against Vacaville. And I think they've so far, easily established themselves as the team to beat, at least for now, I'd say too. There's a long way to go this season, injuries and such. But yeah, I'd say both schedules kind of ease up a little bit going forward. Windsor actually has a pretty tough battle this week. Dublin's is surprising, or like could be a sneaky tough challenge. They're 3-0. They've killed a few teams this year. So that could be Ukiah. That could be a tough challenge this week. And then I know Newman is hitting the road for I'd probably say their easiest game of the year so far against De Anza. De Anza's 0-3 and it's been shellacked against a couple teams. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think I think going forward, I think the hardest teams that these teams will play going forward. I mean, I think it's it's in league play. Windsor and Newman still have to play each other and then play Rancho as well. And I think those are going to be the toughest tests for each team going forward. So
absolutely.
We'll see how that goes. But outside of that, switch at 1 and 2. Rancho staying at 3. Again, they got the good win over Sacramento, and then St. Vincent staying at 4, and Casa Grande staying at 5. So not much else to report there. But yeah, definitely a big change at the top. And then outside looking in, Petaluma probably the next, is probably the next team in, and then actually Annalee, Carrillo, and Piner, who are our other 3 teams in the bubble, all lost this week. So not a great week if you're a bubble team, but I think it also does solidify that our top 5 is a pretty clean top 5 with Petaluma in there on the outside looking in for now. But we'll see how things play out this week with Petaluma, Carrillo, and then Casa is hosting Balboa, who again St. Vincent just beat this week. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Because honestly, I think if Casa can beat St. Vincent by a pretty wide margin of victory, I think that there might be some. Or if Casa can beat Balboa, if they can beat them by a pretty wide margin of victory.
St. Vincent, but they don't.
I know. I think a lot of people do. But yeah, if depending on how that game goes, who knows? St. Vincent, Casa switch at 4. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah.
So sorry to cut you off there, Gus. But keep in mind at the 3 and 4 spot last year, we had a pretty healthy debate about switching St. Vincent and Rancho after Rancho lost to Redwood. So Rancho definitely helped themselves this week with that win over Sacramento.
Anything on our top 5 though? Yeah, that you noticed or whatever.
Not really. I mean, you hit everything on the head. I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, you explained it as best as we could. So don't bother us if you don't understand it. But Newman's number 1 for our new number 1 for now. But Gus, should we go into our preview / predictions for this weekend or last week going into this week? Season records, Gus, you're 25-10. I am 22-13. You have a 3-game lead over me last week. I went 7-5. You went 8-4. So I guess we're counting the Windsor tie as a win for both of us. Because we've never done that before.
I just marked it as a nothing. So,
okay.
We had 13 games last week, and we're only counting 12 of them. We have not we didn't really account for a tie here. So,
I know. It's not in the PDPreps rule book, but I guess it is now. We didn't establish any
ground rules. Yeah, but I guess we should. But I think it just makes sense just to kind of wipe it clean and just be like, all right, nothing going on there. So
yeah. So let's see. We both got Cloverdale wrong. We both got Carrillo, Monty, we flipped San Rafael Piner. I picked Piner. You picked San Rafael, so you got that one right. Both got Archie Williams wrong. Everything else we got right minus Windsor and the Windsor tie. Week 4 predictions. Here we go. Game of the week. Petaluma at Maria Carrillo. We kind of touched on this before. Gussie will be at that game. Going to be an interesting matchup. Last year came down to last second TD. Asher Levy, the starting quarterback this year, was actually starting that game, and he threw a beauty to Dawson Shaw for the game winner last year. Different teams this year, though, Gus. You're going to be there to kind of talk us through what you see. We both have Petaluma, however.
Yeah, I think it's just it just boils down to simple as I think Petaluma's a better team right now. Like we said, their backfield is looking great. Behind Ed Burnsitch and Chase Miller, and then their defense is looking really good too. London and Burnsitch, at those defensive end spots too. So I don't quite know about Petaluma's health right now. I haven't heard of any big injuries, or anything like that. And again, that's kind of the key point for them this year. So. I think right now how it stacks up, Petaluma is the better team, but I'm expecting a pretty close and competitive game. Like we said, Carrillo Plays a very similar style. They have a talented quarterback, Cooper Bluestone, who's had some good games this year. And then their defense has shown some good flashes to it. And again, we know that they have some good players, on that side of the ball as well. So I think it'll be close. I don't think it's going to be a runaway, but I do think Petaluma wins it.
Yeah, I think Petaluma as well. I think their offense is firing on all cylinders right now. And I just think they're the better team as well. But who knows? Carrillo can be surprising, especially if Wyatt Olson keeps having those big games. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Rancho Cotati versus Freedom Oakley. Freedom Oakley, Gus, you mentioned before, is 0-3, I believe you said earlier on in the episode. Rancho coming off that big Sacramento win. I just think Rancho is a better team than Freedom Oakley. I think Freedom is going to have their hands full with Pruitt and all those weapons, young weapons, I will say that Rancho has. So going with the Cougars by a couple touchdowns here.
So yeah, I mean, I've also picked Rancho in this one, but Freedom has played maybe the hardest schedule of any team in the North Coast section so far. I mean, maybe not all the North Coast section, but for an 0-3 team, I think that's a bit deceiving. So they played Marin Catholic, El Cerrito, and Vanden from Fairfield. Now, granted, all of those have been pretty lopsided losses. They lost to Marin Catholic 52-0. Lost to El Cerrito 63-14, and lost to Vanden 45-20. But again, all three of those teams are like section contender caliber teams. So Freedom has been tested, to say the least, early on. And again, that's showing up in a massive score, negative score differential, and their 0-3 record. But I mean, I think it's funny to say that Rancho might be the weakest, quote unquote, team that they've played so far this year. So we'll see how that kind of goes. But I think on paper, this looks like this looks like a Rancho win. But none of the Rancho wins so far have been, I guess, easy, at this point. So sure. I'm expecting a tough one. I'm expecting, this is a Freedom team that knows how to play good teams, and is battle tested again, just to use that phrase, that cliche again. But I mean, definitely a passing team. They're not they're not a big rushing team. So we'll see how Rancho's passing defense looks like. This is probably the one of the bigger passing teams that Rancho's played so far this year. So I guess Redwood kind of could say the same thing, but picking Rancho, but kind of same thing as the Petaluma Korea game. I think it could be closer than you might think.
All righty, fair enough. All right, Windsor versus Dublin. We kind of touched on this earlier. Dublin making the trip up to Sonoma County. Dublin obviously have absolutely been blasted some teams. 3 second half pick sixes against Ukiah and their huge win over the Wildcats. But Windsor has got to be pretty darn hungry for that first win. Going 0-1-1 is certainly not the way they want to start, as we talked about before. I'm going Windsor in this one. Gus, you're going with the Jaguars as well.
Yeah, another potentially sneaky game, I think, here. Dublin 3-0. Some good wins so far. They have a couple guys putting up some big numbers. So yeah, I don't quite know what to expect out of Dublin. I don't know if their schedule's been uber hard yet. They killed Washington Fremont 40-0. They killed Ukiah 49-14, and they killed Newark Memorial last week 42-6. So not sure the quality of those opponents. So I think Windsor should take care of business here. And like you said, I think they'll be very hungry to get into the win column. So I'm going to say Windsor, but I don't know. Dublin could be a little frisky like Napa was last week. We'll see.
Yeah. Frisky and interesting. Those are going to be our two words we use the most this season. Frisky and interesting. Okay, next game, Ukiah versus Santa Rosa. We both have Ukiah in this one, Gus, but I think this could be winnable for either team. I think this is kind of a pick 'em here. Santa Rosa just picked up their first win last week against a Archie Williams squad that has been kind of climbing up through the MCAL the last couple of years. Ukiah obviously will be looking to make get back in the win column after last week against Casa Grande. I have Ukiah. I think I think their weapons are going to have a big game. I think Omari Phillips Porter is going to have a big game. I think Gabe Gonzalez is going to have a huge bounce back game at quarterback. But you never know in the game of football. So, but yeah, we both have the Wildcats. Gus, what do you think?
Yeah, put this one up on the bulletin board, Roy. But yeah, I just think Ukiah is a better team right now. I mean, again, coming off of two pretty tough, lopsided losses, but I don't know. I think Cronin will have those guys turn. We'll turn them around here on short notice and get them back on track. But Ukiah has been hurting without Shea Paris, and I believe it was Zach Martinez was the other guy or player who got ejected in the first game for fighting. So this is gonna this week's game will be the last of their 3-game suspension, and then they'll return for the Windsor game next week, which should be next the 22nd, so a week and a half.
One of the weeks.
Week 5, which should be a really interesting game. Again, that's I think that might be our early game of the week next week, but. I mean, again, Paul, Cronin's been a year at Ukiah, won a section title there. And then, Ukiah's or Windsor's coaching staff is still pretty much, his whole staff that he left there, essentially, or, came over from Newman with. So a lot of friendly faces over there. Again, former coach playing his old school, should be fun. But Anyway, getting off topic here. But yeah, I think Ukiah takes this one, gets back on track. And snaps their little 2-game skid here.
Yep. All right. Next game up, Cardinal Newman taking the trip to De Anza down in El Sobrante. De Anza obviously lost opening week to St. Vincent 58-20. They are 0-3. They have losses against Justin Siena 28-14, and then they lost to Berkeley 41-14. I mean, there's not really much to say about this one, I don't think. We both have Cardinal Newman in this one. I just think this is going to be Newman by not quite a few, but a few touchdowns for sure.
Score prediction, go. What do you think?
Oh, Jesus. Let's go 46-10.
I'm going to go 42-6. I think it's pretty comfortably in hand by halftime, and then maybe Deanza gets a late score or something. But yeah, I think it'll be a
36-10.
So I think it'll be
we'll see. Yeah. Maybe we'll add that, and if we get the score right, then it's a double win, double tick.
There you go.
double
That actually would be fun. That would be fun to do some, for some of our other predictions going forward. We should do some score predictions too, and see who gets closer, get some extra points there. But one thing at a time. All right, moving on. Also, again, I have Newman by quite a bit in this one too. Just
just in case.
In case it wasn't clear.
All right, next game up, Monty versus Hayward. Monty having a tough time, especially after a close loss against Napa last week. Hayward's actually pretty decent program. We both have Hayward in this one. I just don't think Monty bounces back with a win in this one. I'm going Hayward. Seems like you have the same.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I think this probably is a winnable game for Montgomery, but also kind of looking at a mutual opponent here. I mean, Hayward played Bethel and beat them 36-0, and Monty put up 60 on Bethel, a week and a half ago. So, I think this probably could be a pick 'em, but I think last week's loss to Napa is probably that's a tough one to come back from, I'd say. So we'll see. I think it will be close, but we'll see if Monty can kind of snap this little skid here. But again, their 2 losses have been pretty, two pretty I don't know, I guess impactful losses. I mean, Ukiah, you kind of go up there, get, punched in the mouth, don't have a great start to the season, come back with a good win over Bethel, and you're kind of like, yeah, all right, we got this, guys. And then you kind of come back down to earth, against Napa. So I think this is probably a big, see what you're made of kind of game, for Montgomery. Which team are you? Or, are you the team that, can put up 60, against a team that you should beat? Or are you the team that, might not be able to pull out some wins and kind of just shoot themselves in the foot? So we'll see. I'm going to pick Hayward, a little motivation there, Virtus and co. But yeah, we'll see. I think it'll be close, but I think Hayward might have the edge in this one.
All right. Healdsburg versus Kennedy. Healdsburg 0-2. Kennedy out of Richmond coming in at 2-1 with their only loss opening week, coming against Napa. They've rattled off 2 straight wins: 22-0 win against Mills out of Millbrae, and then 48-26 win out of Ignacio Valley out of Concord. last week saw Healdsburg lose decently big to Sonoma Valley. I think Healdsburg definitely gets more points on the board than 9 points the last week, but I think Kennedy takes this one. Gus, you have picked Kennedy as well.
I actually might change this pick now that I'm sitting here looking at
Oh
this.
my goodness.
I'm
This
gonna
is the
change.
first time this has ever happened, folks.
I am
Usually
changing. I
usually
am
we
changing.
have we have our picks made before the pod goes live, but here we go, Gus, doing another first in the PDPreps podcast.
We're changing it up. We're taking Healdsburg in this one. This is a winnable game for Healdsburg. Kennedy Mills is not very good. Kennedy beat Ignacio Valley, who might be the worst team in the North Coast section. They allowed them to put up 26 points last week. Healdsburg is moving the ball better this year. Again, they put up some good points in their last couple of games, again, albeit losses. If there's ever a game that was winnable for Healdsburg this year, it's this one.
For your Greyhounds.
I'm taking my Greyhounds in this one. I think they get a dub here. Their offense has been working. Again, I think I saw these teams play, I think for a half, I want to say a year ago or a year or two ago. And, again, I'd say two of the, lack of a better term, weaker programs in the NCS. But I think if they're, why not? Healdsburg has nothing else to lose, just, go, the pedal to the metal, make it happen.
Go crazy.
Again, I think again, this is a winnable game for Healdsburg, and I think they're going to do it. I'm taking my Greyhounds in this one.
All right. Well, I'm taking Kennedy. So Gus, this is going to be the Healdsburg show next week. If Healdsburg wins, Gus,
we're leading with it. We're leading with
it. All right. Next game up, Casa Grande versus Balboa. And I'm sure, Gus, the Gauchos loved the fact that Balboa was playing St. Vincent. It was short trip across town to scout pretty much on Saturday. So St. Vincent pretty much set him up on a platter for Casa Grande, who happened to be playing Balboa this week. We both have Casa Grande in this one. I think their offense, we talked about it earlier on opening of this episode. So if you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch it. But, Casa Grande's offense has been efficient as heck, and their defense has been playing lights out. So I just don't see that changing. I think Casa Grande wins.
Yeah, this is a bit, lopsided matchup. I think Casa wins this one. We'll say easily. I'll say by at least 3 touchdowns.
Another score prediction, Gus? You want to give it a crack?
Nah, maybe not for this one. Again, I think it'll be a very interesting kind of like because I think Casa will win by quite a few points, but quite a few scores, I guess I should say. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how that again, like it shakes out. How they fare against Balboa versus how St. Vincent fared against Balboa. So. I know St. Vincent is off this week, but this game could have some implications in our rankings next week. So, Casa Grande, I think, in this one by a few scores.
All righty. Next one up, Sonoma Valley versus Terra Linda. Sonoma Valley getting the win over your Greyhounds, 35-9 last week. They now face a Terra Linda team that is 2-1. Although they have a win against an NCL1 team before getting blasted by an NCL1 team and then beating Washington out of San Francisco 33-12. So good start for the Trojans. However, I think Sonoma Valley is a different opponent with all the weapons they got. And I think Sonoma Valley carries that momentum and wins and goes 500 on the year so far. Gus, you have the Dragons as well.
Yeah, this again, like we were really high on Sonoma Valley coming into this year. So far that hype is not quite panned out. Again, a very close loss to Alhambra in the first game. Kelseyville is shaping up to be a very good team, so that loss doesn't look as bad, but still not great to lose by 30. And then again, they take care of Healdsburg with relative ease. So we're still kind of waiting for Sonoma Valley to really kind of break out and be that kind of young, talented team that we expected. Again, they have a lot of good young talent. A new head coach is good, Max Pond. I've also picked Sonoma Valley. I think Terra Linda might be favored in this, so I think we're probably picking an upset here. But I just think it's week 4. It's time for the Dragons to break out and show us what they're made of. So I think that's what we're both counting on here.
There you go. All right. let's head up to the NCL1, Cloverdale versus Fort Bragg. This is a pretty interesting matchup, I think, considering what Cloverdale's done this year. They lost to Lower Lake, which isn't the greatest loss, and they also lost to Pioneer opening week. Facing a Fort Bragg team that is 1-2. Last year, the Eagles absolutely killed Fort Bragg. But Fort Bragg, if we're going off mutual opponents, they lost to, well, no, not mutual opponents, excuse me, but they lost to Kelseyville only 27-0, which does not seem that bad of a loss considering how good Kelseyville is this year. But I'm going with Fort Bragg. Or we split this one. This is kind of a interesting one to pick. Gus, you have a Cloverdale in this one.
Yeah, I think last week's loss against Lower Lake really showed that, yeah, maybe Cloverdale has a ways to go this year. I will say I did talk with Cloverdale head coach Taylor Galloway, I think on Saturday and just or on Friday night, just talking about how the game went. And it's always really hard to play up in Lake County. I always feel for these programs that, especially like ones in Cloverdale where you live in Sonoma County and then you have to go over the hill, and the home field advantage that those teams have for teams out of the area is pretty crazy. And then again, I never like to make any comments really about officiating because I think a lot, again, it's a very hard profession, and they don't get a lot of love. But just from my experience too, I know there has been the calls definitely like to favor some of the home crowds. I'd say with the Lake County officials up there. So is what it is. I think Cloverdale also didn't play their best. So, I don't want to blame it all on officials and I make excuses for them and such. But I think Cloverdale just didn't play well in a hostile environment. They are back home this week, so Fort Bragg's coming to them. And again, I think Cloverdale does have some talent, and I think this is a very winnable game for them. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Cloverdale on this one. But you're going Fort Bragg. So.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Got to keep it interesting. All right. Before we end our predictions with some 8-man football, just a reminder: some buys for this week. St. Vincent, Pioneer, and Annalee are all on buys. For quite a few teams on buys actually. But all right, let's end it with some 8-man football. An interesting 8-man football matchup actually. I know we're both picking the same here, but this could be a bit more interesting than we thought. Rosen University Prep versus Calistoga last year. Calistoga won 51-34 in Santa Rosa. This year could look at it a little different. We'll see. Rosen University Prep coming in 2-1 with wins over Elsie Allen and Tamales before losing in Crystal Springs Uplands. Calistoga coming in 3-0. One of their wins coming via forfeit. I think it was Laytonville, who also gave, I'm pretty sure, Roseland University Prep a forfeit win last year. But they also beat Round Valley 20-8 and Potter Valley 38-0. So both going Calistoga here, but I think it could be closer than people think.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I think it's a more established 8-man program against a newer one. I think that usually has a big advantage in this situation. Calistoga too. This is an interesting story for those who aren't aware. Calistoga has a woman head coach this year. They were unable to find or they were looking for applicants for a new head coach in the springtime. Weren't really getting any. And then it was a longtime teacher, I believe, stepped in to coach the team. So kudos to her, keeping that program going. I think they might have had to not had it. They probably would have had to fold their program at least for this year if they hadn't been able to find someone to step in. So shout out. I forget her name. That's really bad of me, but anyway, Calistoga is off to a good start. 3-0. I mean, again, like you said, they have a shutout win, and they have held Round Valley to one touchdown. So, that's 8-man football is so funny because it's like there's always so much offense and so much so high scoring. So anytime there's a good defensive 8-man team, it usually has a big difference, and looks like that's kind of Calistoga's identity this year as a defensive team. So. I think that's why I'm taking Calistoga. A little more established program, good defense. I think those things are make a big difference in 8-man football.
Yep, no doubt. All right, couple things before we end off quickly. Let's talk about our coverage for this week. Gus, you're going to be at game of the week this week, Petaluma versus Korea. We'll also have coverage from Rancho, Freedom, and Windsor at Dublin, as well as a roundup for some from some other games such as Santa Rosa Ukiah, Cloverdale, Fort Bragg, Sonoma Valley, Terra Linda, among others. Another thing I want to talk about, we are going to start our other fall sports coverage, ramp it up a little bit. We're doing having some volleyball coverage later on this week as well. And Gus, anything else on your end?
Not really off the top of my head. I mean, yeah, like you said, yeah, some volleyball teams off to really good starts. Windsor, yeah, shout out to Windsor volleyball last week. I know this is old news, for anyone who's watching this, but yeah, Windsor volleyball last week beat the number 17 team in the state, Redwood from Larkspur. Swept them too at home 3-0. It was Windsor's, I think, their first home game of the year, and they beat a really talented team, probably the premier win of any team this year. And then but step for step with them, seems like it's been the theme these last couple of years is Cardinal Newman, and it's been Windsor Newman in like every sport, it seems like. But that's good. Looks like it's continuing this year.
Here we go again.
It's just true though. I mean, again, it's the rivalry is alive and alive and well. So, but yeah, I mean, Windsor's off to a great start. Newman's off to a great start. Newman won a tournament out at Vintage this last weekend. They picked up a win against the state ranked or against Archie Williams, who I believe is the reigning state champion, I want to say. So anyway, both teams are off to great starts. We'll have some. I believe we'll have some coverage of them later this week, like you said. And then, yeah, I think we'll have some other, preview stuff looking more at some of the top teams like Newman and Windsor, and also Ukiah too, who looks really good as well this year.
Ukiah's
So
in there. Windsor also plays Marin Catholic on Thursday, and Marin Catholic is regional semifinalist in Division I last year, before losing to eventual state champion Branson. So, yeah, some big matchups on deck for some other sports as well, but we'll make sure to keep you covered. Always follow us on Twitter at JustGusPD. That's his, at KODoherty22. That's mine, and it is always at PDPreps. You can also check out all of our coverage, pressdemocrat.com/sports/PDPreps. I know that's a mouthful, but once you put it in the first time, hopefully it'll recognize it, so you don't have to do that anymore. But that's it for us. We're going to hop off here, get to our coverage this week, and appreciate you guys all for watching, listening, however you consume this content. We will see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.